welcome back to the shop. Got the TRX out. I'm excited about this. I've been doing getting some parts ready, getting some information, things of that nature. As you see, I've already tore it down and kind of did a little preliminary. Remember, we bought this blowed up. We knew that was bad, but I wanted to see how deep the ugly went, you know. And you see here, the bottom end is in really good shape. There is no play up and down on the rod, just a smidgen left and right, but zero up and down. So I'm happy about that. We see some rust here on the crank, probably just exposed to the elements. It's not bad. It looks new. The crank looks new. The gaskets are new. When you buy something used, you're going to get it. It's going to come with a story, and it's going to be up to you to believe it, and it's going to be up to you to verify it. And so far, the story is holding true. And I'm happy to say that the seller told me that it had a new bottom end, and I can't verify it, but it definitely looks like a newer crank, not a 1986 crank. Everything seems to be okay that I can tell. All right, so we've got some parts laid out here on the table, and just kind of going over them with you, starting pretty much at the top and working our way down as we got our head. And the head looks good. I don't see where the pistons come up and hit it. I don't see where maybe, you know, it wasn't cleaned or anything. This was the gasket that was on it. It's a Vertex gasket, which is an okay brand, nothing special. It says Vertex on it. It is a shim gasket. As you see, it's got a metal shim in the middle. I don't see anything wrong so far. You know, I can't really verify for any type of cracks or anything, other than just really, you know, clean this up and check it again. But first look, I don't see anything out of place. Piston, a couple things to note here on this piston. It's a 66 millimeter piston, which is the factory bore for this machine. The book on it is 66 millimeters. That means this piston is actually less than 66. That's why it works. You can see how it was running on the front and the back of the piston as it set in the cylinder. I don't know enough. I'll just be honest, I don't know enough to determine a lot from this other than something wasn't right. It doesn't look like it got too hot. It doesn't look like it was scorched. It wasn't seized. I don't see anything that makes me feel that it was locked up. The rings, as you see here, the rings, this is the top and the second ring, or first and second ring. They actually look, you know, just visually, they look okay. There's not a flat spot. There's not a part missing. They're all here. We are going to run a test here in just a minute, and we're going to put these rings back in the cylinder. We're going to take a measurement off of that. We got a feeler gauge just for that part. We're going to do that. Here is the cylinder. Now, I'm going to put some pictures in here and show you what the cylinder looked like. But this is the cylinder after a very, very light hone. I didn't hardly take any material out of here except for the buildup of the piston. The aluminum that was transferred onto the cylinder came right out. I'm looking for cracks. I'm looking for anything. It does have some scratches, but it's very, very minor. Nothing I can feel. It looks extremely well. Extremely good. My worst case scenario at this point is the machine ran hot. There's a crack here that is only going to show up after we rebuild it. So our job at this point is to go forward with the rebuild. I'm going to go tear this apart, take the reeds out of it, and we're going to run it through the ultrasonic cleaner. But so far the cylinder has cleaned up perfect. I mean, it really, really looks good. Unless there's a crack in it, I feel good going forward. Now, the rings themselves, remember now, this machine was tore apart. These components were already in the box. We see some change in color here on the ring. but that's to be expected. I don't necessarily think that's a level of hotness that you can say it was ran hot. You know, I just don't have enough experience with these to be able to make that kind of determination. But when I got it, the piston was out of it and the top ring was not centered on its pin. Now, if you know anything about two-strokes, these pistons are going to have little pins, and if you look really, really close, see that little pin right there? There's a little pin there. There's a little pin there for the top ring. Now, what that does is that staggers the ring gaps, but it also staggers the ring gaps in a way that when the piston goes down, they do not get hung up in these transfer ports. That's the whole reason. You know, people talk about rings walking and staggering your rings on a 4-stroke, and that is important. But on a 2-stroke, the rings cannot walk, and the reason they can't is because if a ring edge were to catch one of these edges or these openings, these transfer ports, it would just destroy itself as soon as that part of a ring caught that. So it's very important that the rings do not walk on a 2-stroke. Get some tools out here. These are all Harbor Freight, inexpensive. I got a set of dial calipers here. There's nothing special about them. I'm sure they're not NASA certified, but for what we're doing, I think they are very capable of the job that we're going to ask of them. And so what we want to do when you've got a machine that you're not sure if you're ready to move forward with it or not, you want to check the bore on this. We know that our piston was 66 millimeters. It says that right here on the top of the piston. We've checked our manual and we know this cylinder factory OE standard bore is 66 millimeters, so that's right. I had some concerns that maybe this was an overboard cylinder with an underboard piston. That is not the case. So what I did is I came out here, and this is a bore gauge. It compresses left and right like this, and you turn the handle, and if you're old enough, you may remember, my dad had one, you lock the handle here, and that would be like for your razor. Come on guys, think back. The old-timey razors, you would open them up at the bottom, and as you spun them open, the lid would come open. They'd put a straight razor blade, a double-sided razor blade in there, and then you would close them back. Well, this is pretty much the same thing. With the screw here at the bottom loose, the plungers at the top can go in and out. You take the said plungers and you put it in your piston, and I like to take an average. I'll do this 3 or 4 times in a couple of different directions. I'll try to start at 90 degrees to how I'm standing, and I'll take a measurement here. Now on a 2-stroke, you got to stay up above the transfer ports. Take a measurement, you know, here, and then take a measurement here. And how do you take a measurement? Is get it centered, and then you twist this knob at the top and you lock it down, and then when you pull this out like so, then that distance is locked. And then you take a set of dial calipers like these. Be sure and set them to 0 when they're shut, because you need to do this every time. There you go. Now if this comes up 66 or very close to that, then we know that our cylinder is in good shape. And the reason we do this multiple times, all right, so our cylinder is 6595. 6599 is what I came up with before. There you go. And that's as close to 66 as you're going to get. Right there, 6599. Now, I checked this in several different orientations. I checked it basically vertical, horizontal, and then at each 45 axis, and I came up with between 66 and 65.99. I didn't, and here's why you would do it that many times. Your cylinder can actually wear and get kind of an oval shape to it. That's why you turn your mic around. It can actually taper top and bottom. It can actually kind of get wore out at the top. And so you want to take this, and I did basically 6 measurements, as low as I could and then as high as I could. And I took all those averages out, and my average came out to be 65.99. You know, we're not talking high-end tools here. We're just using basically what we can get our hands on. Relatively inexpensive. We'll take another measurement. You just want this just to barely touch. It should basically walk right through there just a little bit. $66.01 looks good. That is just barely touching the highest point. So again, 66 is the factory standard bore. So I feel pretty confident. And you can pick up, this was a kit, believe it or not, on the eBay. And it came with the Vertec, pretty much the exact same kit. It looks like we were replacing all of your top end gaskets. It come with a wiseco piston, which I like wiseco piston. There's others out there. It comes with the piston bearing, and then right here you can see that this is a 66 millimeter piston. Again, it's the factory bore, the standard for the piston. This is going to be our piston we're going to use. Let's see if I open it up. I haven't even opened it up yet. It should look exactly the same as the other one. I believe that's what that is. So here's our new set of rings. We got some stickers. That's always important. Some Go Fast stickers. Oh, they put the logo on the bag. Yeah, that's nice. And there's our piston. It's like jewelry. And you can read this one a little easier. 6600 is the last 4 digits. 66 is our piston. Also, you see the arrow, and that arrow is going to tell you that that is the exit. That's the exhaust side of your piston. So what I'd like to do before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I'd like to take this top ring. We're going to put it back in our cylinder. Now that we've cleaned the cylinder up, I'm going to take the piston, I'm going to put it in and make sure that it is flush in the cylinder, square, pull it out. Now I want to check the gap. This is where our feeler gauge comes in at. And what we're going to want to try to find out the measurement between our gap in our ring in the cylinder. Let's go down here to 26. That's a pretty good drag on 26. I'm going to say it's probably 25 to 26 thousandths ring gap. We'll check 25 and see. Yeah, now 25 is just loose as it can be. 26 is not. Yeah, okay. So now let's see what our new ring does. Our ring gap on this particular, and every engine's a little different, on this particular setup of rings for 2-cycle engine rings, Wiseco's recommend 0.004 per inch of bore ring gap. And so here's how you figure this. We know that our bore is 66 millimeters, which is 2.598 inches. We multiply that by 0.004 equals, and we get 0.010, so 10 thousandths. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our new rings, and we're going to take our top ring here, hopefully. Yeah. We're going to place it in our cylinder. And just like before, we're going to use the piston to square our ring up. $14 is too slow. 15 millimeters is what we're going to go with. I want to double check my math on that. So your piston to ring end gap on this is 0.020. So we are well within that. We are 0.15. And so I feel good about going forward with this. I had to make that, I had to get it right up here so I could tell you that our ring gap with the Wiseco rings and the standard bore gave us a ring gap of 0.015. The tolerance, or before you need to bore it out, is 0.020. So we're 5 thousandths within that tolerable range. So that's good. I wasn't real sure on that. This is the first time I've had to go against Wiseco's recommendations. I will say, with doing some homework, a little bit bigger ring gap is better than too small of a ring gap, and the reason being is expansion of heat. When your rings and pistons and cylinders, everything's getting hot kind of at a different time because they're different metals. You've got steel, you've got aluminum, you've got variations of steel, different types of alloys and so forth. Everything's going to heat up a little bit different. Everything's going to get to its maximum heat temperature at a different point. So you've got to have room in there for that piston to expand and get a little loose, and you've got to have room for that cylinder cylinder to expand, those rings to maintain that seal. And if those rings get too tight, if that piston expands too fast and pushes those rings together, they're going to bond. And if they bond and they buckle and one pops out on top of the other one, it's going to catch a transfer port and your day is over. So if you have to err on a little bit out of tolerance, it's better to be a little big on your gap than a little small. So we're going to get this cylinder cleaned up tonight, and tomorrow morning we're going to hit it hot, and hopefully we can make some smoke.
There you go. Ah, that's great. Whew.
Found some things. I had to put this on time lapse, guys. I had one day to film this and it rained. You can even see that the lens is a little foggy. There you go. Whew. Okay, so our water drain was not tight. Who knew? Probably a good way to purge it a little bit too, so that probably didn't hurt anything. A couple of things. We have no clutch engagement. The clutch is not working. All right, we tighten that up. See if that's gonna leak anymore. May need an O-ring or something behind there. I'm not sure. I'll check the book. We got a lot of loose bolts to go back. Skid plates loose, motor mount missing down here. That's why I didn't really romp on it too much. Wow. No clutch. That could be a big deal. It might not be a big deal. Might just need a clutch. We'll tear it down. But this week's video is getting it running. And so we did a top end on it. I didn't find anything wrong other than, like I said, the machine was not smoking when he was riding it. Maybe the fuel mix was a little lean. I don't know. The water seems to be circulating, so we're going to keep an eye on that. I would even go as far as to get like a temperature gauge and probably put on here. That would be cool too. But we got a spring we're missing on the exhaust. Just, you know, I try to put things back together the way at least they were running last, and then go from there. You know, we've got the wrong bolts in a few places. We got the wrong nuts. We found two studs here. These two nuts were stripped out on the head. They would not hit torque, and torque on these I think was 22 foot-pounds, and they would not hit torque. We changed the nuts out, or the bolts out, and it went just fine. I've got 5% left on this battery. I'm going to try to finish this video. Thank y'all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. This is a beast. I haven't even got half throttle on it. I've got to get rid of that twist grip. That's probably gonna hurt me. But it's running, and it's all there, and it's titled. I got my title in the mail the other day, so it is legit, and I don't have to worry about anything moving forward. Hey, anybody, if you've got a airbox lid for an 86 TRX 4-Trax 250R, hit me up in the comments. I'm gonna need one. I have no idea what this carb is jetted at. This is the carb that was on it. I didn't even clean it. I just put it on and wanted to see what we were working with. We'll pull the plug and check it, but it fires up pretty good. It took me about, I had the kicker 3-tooth the wrong way, so I wasn't getting a full stroke the first couple of times I kicked it. I reset the kicker to where it would start here instead of start here, because that's just kind of dead man space there. So I took all that travel up and then reset my kicker. Got a lot more kick out of it that way. It fired right up. Well, hot dog, there you go. That's it. I'm happy. My Wednesday is complete. We have a running TRX 250R in the stable, and I can't wait to get it out and compare it to some of these up here on the shelf. That is a beast. All right, so I'm pulling the head back off. I know this is not exactly, it's not customary, let's say that. But the reason I'm doing this is because this machine came to us blowed up, and I don't know why it was blowed up. I just don't. I want to check the piston and the cylinder and see if we've got any abnormal wear, because I replaced the piston with the exact same size piston I took out. We know that the previous owner said he did a top end, rode it 20 minutes, and then it blew it up. It wouldn't run no more. I have ridden it 2 minutes, you know, maybe 5 at the most. So I'm wondering if there's any wear. So let's find out what we're working with here. I'm hoping not, but you never know. I just didn't feel that pulling the plug was gonna tell us everything that we really needed to know on this machine. I don't see any strange colors. I don't see any wear. Now this machine was wearing the cylinder. If you look back to the first photos, it wore the cylinder really bad and transferred a lot of aluminum on the front and the back of the cylinder. Grab a light. This is probably overkill, but when you buy something used and you don't know why it blew up for the previous guy, you gotta wonder, you know. You can't just assume anything, especially when it comes to engines. You know, yeah, we could run another 10 minutes, and if it blows up, then it blows up. But you know, I don't want to do that. I want to try to do the job and do it right. You know, maybe he put the piston in backwards. Maybe he caught the edge of a ring on one of those transfer ports. I mean, anything is possible. But I'm very pleased with that. That looks really, really good. Okay. So that's it. That's, you know, it's an extra step. It literally took 5 minutes to pull the top off of it. I pulled the plug. The plug is running lean. Even though my fuel mixture is richer than probably normal. I'm going to pull the carb now. Even though it idles, and idles fine, I did get on it a little bit. It didn't exactly like it. So I didn't push it. I brought it back into the shop, and now we're tearing it down. I want it right. You know, it's to me, I think the TRX is just like the top of the line bike. You know, it just top of the line machine. It is just, it's everything Honda had in '86. And so I want to preserve it, and I want it right. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to put the head back on it. We're all good.